She stood at a crossroads where the world kept telling her to shrink, to choose comfort, to choose quiet, but she refused. She chose herself, and that single decision became the spark that lit the whole path ahead of her. When she chose herself, she didn't just open a door, she shifted the ground beneath her feet. She realized that waiting for approval was a slow kind of suffocation, and choosing herself was oxygen. The first truth she learned was that self-belief is not a luxury, it's a prescription. The kind that heals old wounds, resets a broken mindset, and strengthens the entire system from the inside out. She discovered that confidence isn't something you stumble into, it's something you build like a muscle, rep after rep, moment after moment. She let go of the voice that said she wasn't ready and replaced it with a voice that said, try anyway. She understood that courage doesn't mean you feel no fear, it means the fear no longer gets to drive. The second truth she learned is that choosing yourself forces your environment to recalibrate. When she raised her standards, everything around her had to rise or fall away. People who once doubted her began to respect her. Opportunities that once looked too big suddenly looked like the next logical step. She stopped asking why me and started asking why not me. And that shift changed everything, because the world responds differently to someone who has decided to show up as the fullest version of who they are. She became her own advocate, her own healer, her own momentum. And once she chose herself, she stopped surviving and started building. Building peace, purpose, discipline, and visions too solid to be shaken by temporary storms. That choice made her unstoppable, not because life became easy, but because she finally understood her power. So if you're standing where she once stood, uncertain, exhausted, or overlooked, let this be your sign. Choose yourself. Choose your growth. Choose your voice. Because the moment you do, the world shifts. The moment you do, the doors start opening. And the moment you do, everything changes. When she chose herself, the very first transformation wasn't visible on the outside. It happened quietly, internally, like a heartbeat strengthening after years of beating too softly. She learned that self-belief is not some decorative accessory reserved for moments of inspiration. It's a vital sign, something as essential as breath, as fundamental as blood flow. And for the first time in her life, she made the decision to treat it that way. She chose to stop waiting for someone else to hand her permission slips for her own dreams. She realized that if she didn't operate like her life mattered, nobody else was going to do it for her. And that truth hit her with the force of a diagnosis she couldn't ignore. She had been living underdosed on her own confidence. For years, she had been giving everyone else the authority to define her limitations. Teachers, partners, friends, strangers with opinions that weighed too much and meant too little. She absorbed criticism like medicine and treated compliments like side effects. She kept shrinking, adjusting, minimizing, hoping that if she was small enough, she wouldn't take up the wrong space. But choosing herself was the moment she recognized that the real issue wasn't a lack of ability, it was a lack of belief. And belief is a treatment that only the individual can prescribe. So she made a new commitment. She decided to rebuild her confidence like a muscle, one honest repetition at a time. She stopped waiting to feel fearless because she learned that fearlessness isn't the prerequisite for movement, it's the result. Courage doesn't show up in advance like an invitation, it shows up during the work. So she pushed forward even when her voice shook. She stepped onto paths that intimidated her. She walked into rooms where she felt unqualified, and slowly, her mindset began to shift, not because she suddenly became perfect, but because she refused to keep abandoning herself at the first sign of discomfort. She practiced telling herself the truth, the kind of truth that strengthens the spine. She replaced "I can't" with "I'm learning." She replaced "I'm not enough" with "I'm growing into more every day." She realized how often she had been narrating her own downfall without even noticing, how frequently she had been rehearsing defeat. And she made a conscious decision to rewrite that script. She chose thoughts that nurtured her instead of weakening her. She chose goals that stretched her instead of shrinking her. She chose habits that fueled her instead of draining her. Every small decision became a form of self-respect, waking up earlier, speaking up louder, taking care of her health, setting boundaries without apologizing, showing up for her commitments even when she was tired. All of these things were chapters in her new story, proof that she was no longer waiting for someone to save her, proof that she was saving herself. And with each one of those choices, she felt something shifting, not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily, like the slow build of strength after weeks in the gym. She noticed her posture changing, not just physically, but mentally. She carried herself with more certainty, more clarity, more presence. She didn't need to announce her transformation. She didn't need to perform it. It simply radiated through her. Choosing herself meant she understood her value, not in a loud, boastful way, but in a grounded, peaceful, undeniable way. She learned that belief doesn't make the journey easy, but it makes it possible. And for the first time, she wasn't looking for validation to keep going. She was looking within. When she finally chose herself, something remarkable happened. Her entire environment had no choice but to shift. It was as if the world had been waiting for her to step into alignment so it could respond accordingly. She learned that when you elevate your sense of worth, Everything connected to you must either rise to meet you or fall away. And that's the moment she understood the real power of self-selection. It doesn't just change you, it changes the ecosystem around you. At first, the shift was subtle. She noticed that she no longer felt obligated to entertain conversations that drained her spirit. She no longer accepted relationships that operated at a discount rate of respect. She wasn't willing to negotiate her peace just to make other people comfortable. She stopped shrinking her ambition to fit into environments that didn't have the capacity to hold it. And the moment she took that stance, the universe recalibrated like a body responding to a stronger pulse. People who once doubted her started to look at her differently, not because she became someone else, but because she was finally showing up as who she always was. There was a new tone in her voice, a new steadiness in her walk, a new clarity in her eyes. She carried her goals like prescriptions written by her future self, non-negotiable, necessary, life-changing, and with this new presence, she began to attract opportunities that aligned with her self-belief. But not everything or everyone made the journey with her, and that was part of the healing. When she chose herself, she triggered a detox. Certain relationships, habits, places, even thought patterns began to fall away, not out of rejection, but out of misalignment. What used to fit no longer felt right. What once felt comfortable now felt constricting. She understood that elevation requires elimination. And sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is let go. It wasn't always easy. Growth rarely is. There were moments she questioned herself, moments where loneliness tried to whisper that she was making a mistake, moments when being misunderstood felt heavier than the path she was determined to walk. But every time doubt tried to pull her back, she reminded herself of one truth: shrinking never served her. Playing small never made her happier. Waiting for approval never opened any doors. The old version of her had been surviving, the new version was building, and as she kept building, her environment began to acknowledge the architect she had become. Opportunities she once thought were too big suddenly felt like they were aligned with the size of her purpose. Rooms that felt intimidating became spaces she entered with confidence. Conversations that once overwhelmed her became conversations she led with clarity and conviction. She stopped asking why me and started asking why not me, and that shift alone expanded her horizon. The more she chose herself, the more she noticed something profound. The world mirrors your posture. Stand unsure and people treat you like a question. Stand grounded and people treat you like an answer. Her energy began speaking before she opened her mouth. Her standards became her filters. Her boundaries became her protection. Her self-respect became her language. She no longer needed to chase validation. She began attracting respect, not because she demanded it, but because she became the kind of person who naturally inspires it. And this wasn't arrogance, it was alignment, a healthy alignment, a healed alignment. The kind of alignment that comes from finally recognizing that settling is a form of self-harm and rising is a form of self-care. Choosing herself didn't mean she became perfect, it meant she became responsible for her own life. She became responsible for the energy she allowed, the dreams she pursued, the relationships she accepted, the peace she protected. She stopped outsourcing her power and reclaimed it piece by piece, decision by decision. And once she raised her standards, the world rose with her. Doors opened, connections strengthened, vision sharpened. She didn't just move forward, she elevated, she expanded, she transformed. Because that's what happens when a woman chooses herself. She doesn't just change her life, she changes the landscape around her. And now, as her journey stands before you, not as a story of perfection, but as a testament to possibility, let it remind you of this truth: choosing yourself is not a selfish act. It is a necessary one. It is the moment you decide that your life deserves your full presence, your full courage, your full commitment. She chose herself and everything changed, not all at once, not without obstacles, but with intention, discipline, and a heart willing to grow. And that same power lives in you, the power to rise, the power to rewrite your narrative, the power to step into rooms you once felt unworthy of and stand there like you were born to be in them. If there is one message you carry with you from her story, let it be this: the world shifts when you do. Your life expands when you do. Your future opens when you finally choose yourself. So don't wait for permission. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for applause. Choose yourself now. Choose your growth now. Choose your healing now. Choose your voice now. Because the moment you do, the journey begins. And once you begin, there is no limit to who you can become.